Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the acknowledgement. Mr. Speaker, I rise this afternoon from this side of the House to passionately contribute to the crucial budget debate of 2025. As this is my first address of the new year, I want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to extend best wishes or heartfelt wishes to you, your family, your dedicated staff, and all members of Parliament, alongside every Guyanese citizen, for a filled year with productivity and prosperity in 2025. Let us embrace this opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to respect one another amid our differences. I urge each and every member of this House to grow in maturity and demonstrate a steadfast unity as we navigate the challenges ahead. Together, let us serve our nation with unwavering determination and a spirit of collaboration that will inspire all Guyanese. Budget 2025 arrives at a pivotal moment for our nation, a year when every Guyanese faces crucial decisions that will safeguard or jeopardize our national wealth for future generations. Mr. Speaker, this is not just another year. It is the year when political parties, movements, and various interest groups will fiercely compete for the heart and soul of our beloved nation. We must remember the wisdom of Proverbs 14:34, and I quote, "Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin condemns any people." And let us reflect on Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, Bishop, the people mourn. And this is taken from King James Version. Undeniably, many Guyanese are ready to rise to the intellectual challenge, especially in the light of the No Child Left Behind policy that ravaged our educational landscape in 2010. Over the past 5 years, we have witnessed two contrasting governments, Mr. Speaker, one leading from 2015 to 2020 without the benefits of oil resources, and the other from 2020 to 2025 or 2024 harnessing these resources. One focused on empowering the people and creating a pathway to a better life, while the other prioritized infrastructure that has unfairly enriched, Mr. Speaker, select families and allies of the People's Progressive Party. It is imperative that my budget presentation will offer a clear, compelling overview of budget speech, followed by a thorough analysis of the sector I oversee, Mr. Colin Crowell, an evaluation of current measures, and my earnest recommendations and suggestions to guide us further for a brighter future. Mr. Speaker, I urge you to critically assess the budget for 2025 unveiled in this honorable House on Friday, 17th of January, 2025, set at a staggering 1.38 trillion. Evident that Dr. Singh, tasked with his presentation, was not in his usual spirited form. His discomfort was palpable. It is my belief, echoing the sentiments of many Guyanese, that this budget fails to demonstrate the necessary foresight and strategic planning, essentially for fulfilling its professed theme, a secure, prosperous, and sustainable Guyana, quote and unquote. This theme, Mr. Speaker, echoes that of previous year's budgets, with hardly any innovation. In 2020, our plan for prosperity, protecting our people in a COVID-19 environment, strengthen democracy and the rule of law. In 2021, Mr. Speaker, a path to recovery, economic dynamism, and resilience. In 2023, Mr. Speaker, or 2022, steadfast against all challenges, resolution in building our one Guyana. In 2023, Mr. Speaker, improving lives today, building prosperity for tomorrow, and in 2024, staying the course, building prosperity for all. Thus, I pose these crucial questions to the government. Who exactly will you be securing in 2025? Who stands to benefit from this promised prosperity? And how will our nation ensure sustainable growth? Every responsible government must grapple with these questions. I fear that the theme for Budget 2025, Mr. Speaker, neglects the marginalized and vulnerable individuals who live well below the poverty line in our oil-rich nation. This is not an anti-poverty budget. Instead, it appears to secure the interests of the affluent, enabling the wealthy to strive while neglecting those in dire straits. Mr. Speaker, as I listened intently since the presentation of the budget, I pondered whether our nation truly began anew on 16th of May 2015, coinciding with the coalition government takeover, or if the People's Progressive Party Civic returned to power on 2nd of August 2020, signified a regression. The history of our nation is fraught with the mismanagement of the PPPC, categorized by 2 decades of incompetence and inefficiency that the Guyanese populace has not forgotten, Dr. Ashley Singh. I will not waste my precious time, Mr. Speaker, in detailing their dismal track record, which is all too familiar to us. Instead, I must assert that they have reverted to their old ways with a familiar horse with no name. It begins with C and ends with N, haunting every sector. I would like to share a profound observation from a thoughtful young Guyanese, Mr. Speaker, who reached out to me while Dr. Singh was speaking. And this is what the youngster sent to my WhatsApp. Why is he only discussing the APNU failures? This man has launched his campaign right there via WhatsApp 17th of January 2025 at 14:58 hours. I implore you, Mr. Speaker, to consider who will be the true beneficiaries of this budget and to advocate for a future that uplifts all Guyanese, not just the privileged few. Thus is the moment to demand a budget that genuinely addresses the needs of our people, Mr. Speaker, and fosters a government that prioritizes everyone, those living in poverty and also those who are affluent. Mr. Speaker, we are all familiar with a well-known quote from the second president of the United States of America, the late John Adams, 1770. And this is what he said, Mr. Speaker: facts are stubborn things. In borrowing this famous quotation, I can, without contradiction, apply it to the People's Progressive Party Civic, who, despite, Mr. Speaker, being confronted with the facts and evidence, still finds it in their nature to be mendacious, striving to prove themselves superior. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in paragraphs 1 and 8 of the budget speech on pages 2 and 3 of 111 of his budget speech, the Honorable Singh could neither restrain himself nor refrain from repeating the usual rhetoric that Guyanese have grown weary of from the PPPC's chief priest, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Bala Jagdeo, whose only attendance in the National Assembly seems to be to meet with select individuals outside of the chambers, and when appropriation bills are up for passage, the record of this 12th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, will prove me right. In examining paragraph 110 of his speech on page 3 of 111, Honorable Member Dr. Singh listed several purported achievements of the People's Progressive Party Civic over the last 4 years. I am pleasantly surprised that the PPPC constantly boasts about delivering some 50,000 house lots, a manifesto promise deliver. However, Mr. Speaker, in examining the speech, I have not seen anywhere listed the figure 50,000. Furthermore, the term house lot is also absent. I will address housing substantively. Mr. Speaker, I found paragraph 114 of the budget speech to be quite intriguing. Why is that? The honorable member stated, since August 2020, successive budgets have outlined the key pillars of the modern and prosperous Guyana that we are building for the long term, quote and unquote. I must respectfully disagree with the honorable member. Over the last 5 budgets, 4 of which were funded by oil resources, there has been a cumulative budgetary allocation 6 times greater than the coalition government, whose programs and projects were not funded through oil resources, mind you, Mr. Speaker. I am still grappling with the idea that these budgets have been successful and are contributing to a modern Guyana when Guyanese have yet to witness the successes on a personal and individual level. On the sectorial developments and the agenda for 2025 in paragraph 432 on page 30 of the budget speech regarding bauxite, Dr. Singh is being disingenuous in claiming that the bauxite industry suffered a tragic blow, during the period from 2015 to 2015. It would be remiss of me not to remind the House and the people of Guyana of what transpired well before May 2015, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the confusion in the bauxite industry. Kaiser News, April 28, 2010. Who was the government? Not the coalition. Mr. Speaker, another headline, the bauxite workers are at a disadvantage. And this is a letter to the editor carried in Kaiser News dated May 12, 2010. Who was in government? Not the coalition. Mr. Speaker, Guyana Bauxite Workers Union bitter at Roussel government. Mr. Speaker, this was carried on the 25th of January 2010. Who was in government? And Mr. Speaker, you would remember quite clearly because you were the Minister of Labor. And you was the Minister of Labor, Mr. Speaker, based on...
And did a fine job too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, bauxite workers refused to eat food from Cockroach Kitchen, 16th of November 2010. Who was in government? The People's Progressive Party Civic. The bauxite workers' struggle is about workers' rights. Who was in government on December 11th, 2010? 2009, not the coalition government. It was your Ashni Kumar Singh. Mr. Speaker, I want to put on record because, oftentimes we continue to hear 200 taxes, 380 taxes, and then we 400 taxes. You know, these people are good at fiddling with and adding numbers. But Mr. Speaker, you would recall in this honorable house, a question was put to the Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh by yours truly, Mr. Speaker. And this is what is recorded in the Hansard of Thursday, the 20th of July, 2023. And this is what, when the minister was asked the question, can the Honorable Senior Minister provide a detailed list of the 200 taxes and fees on items as claimed to have been imposed by the coalition government during the period May 2015 to August 20th? This is what the honorable member laid in the National Assembly as his response. The list of taxes and fees imposed by the APNU AFC government during the period May 2015 to August 2020 has been extensively reported on and ventilated in the public domain. You know, Mr. Speaker, this is the disingenuousness of these people and the deceitfulness of this government. But we on this side of the house, we would be able to Mr. Speaker, I urge you to turn your attention. I urge you to turn your attention to pages 57, 58 of 111 in the budget speech, particularly paragraphs 4.139 and 4.14 under the heading Housing. It is essential, Mr. Speaker, to acknowledge that these paragraphs contain significant inaccuracies and unfulfilled aspirations. Furthermore, I assert that while the PPPC previously resorted to allocating bush lots or swamps for housing schemes without a thorough and cohesive strategy, the coalition government has diligently, Mr. Speaker, prioritized the development of cohesive and sustainable communities. This shift, Mr. Speaker, represents a commitment to not only meet the housing needs of our citizens, but to also elevate the quality of life within our neighborhoods. Let us embrace a vision, Mr. Speaker. Let us embrace a vision, and I believe the coalition government would have left a blueprint at the Ministry of Housing and Water. Honorable Mr. Speaker, the housing and water sectors are not just crucial, they are the very foundation of human existence. In my academic pursuit, Mr. Speaker, I have delved into Maslow's hierarchical needs or hierarchical theories of 1943, a powerful framework that outlines our society's universal needs. And this is what Maslow had to say. Ascending towards the most profound human emotions. We are all familiar with the 5 essential components of this theory: self-actualization, esteem, love and belonging, safety needs, and physiological needs. These components are not mere concepts, Mr. Speaker. They reflect our intrinsic desires for security and fulfillment, and they can be powerfully applied to underscore the importance of robust housing and water systems. Investing in these sectors is not just a necessity, it is an imperative for achieving a thriving society where every individual, Priya Manik Chan, can reach their fullest potential and experience true well-being. Let us champion the cause for accessible and safe housing and water, for it is addressing these fundamental needs that we cultivate a richer and healthier society. Mr. Speaker, it is essential that we frame this conversation not with clarity and purpose. In his recent presentation, Dr. Singh resorted to his theatrical style, making baseless accusations against the coalition government for not doing nothing in the housing sector. Mr. Speaker, when I heard this term, nothing, I had to go to the Google and try to get an understanding of what this word nothing means. And this is what Google said to me. Google said nothing means not anything or no single thing. Well, Mr. Speaker, I got news for those over there to let them know what the coalition did between 2015 and 2020 in the housing sector. So I'm going there. Mr. Speaker, in sharp contrast, the coalition, even in the absence of oil resources, has demonstrated unwavering commitment and strategic acumen by effectively utilizing funds. You're hearing this thing? Oh, the coalition government didn't come to the National Assembly to get funds to drive the housing sector. But let me remind the Honorable Crowell and Rodriguez that the housing sector has a revolving housing fund. And rather than us coming to this National Assembly between 2015 and 2020, we utilized the funds from the housing funds to correct many of the defects that we found in the housing sector. This diligent investment, Mr. Speaker, not only addresses immediate housing needs, but also supports our visionary goal. What we were doing, Mr. Speaker, we were building cohesive and sustainable communities. Together, we are deriving real change and progress in the housing sector. That is what we were doing. Furthermore, whereas the previous PPPC government treated the housing fund, Mr. Speaker, like a flush, we'll call it again, a flush fund or a slush fund. Yeah, that is how they treated it, Mr. Speaker. Our administration has prioritized genuine, impactful solutions. The evidence speaks for itself, Mr. Speaker. Unlike our predecessors, we have never stood before this House shifting blame for the over 60,000 backlog we inherited, nor for the substantial number of unprocessed titles of the many new areas awaiting integration into local authority jurisdictions, along with a dreadful state of infrastructure. As a responsible and visionary government, Mr. Speaker, what we did, we rolled up our sleeves and we were proud to have invested over $2 billion from the housing fund to rectify the large amount of issues we found in houses built before May 2015, which were left to languish due to the People's Progressive Party civic negligence. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Crowell and Rodriguez, over the past 4 years, they are yet, Mr. Speaker, to present a clear and comprehensive plan to tackle the pressing housing needs of our citizens. It is disheartening to observe that their focus, Mr. Speaker, seems to me, and I guess to many Guyanese, limited to mere photo opportunities with allottees during the identification of their house slots. Just go to their Facebooks and you will see what is happening. Mr. Speaker, I must ask, have these members truly taken time to engage with the detailed documents left by the coalition government? If I were to question them, would they even be aware that in December 2016, the Inter-American Development Bank, through the HUD, Mr. Speaker, we were able to get a loan for a loan of 517,250 US dollars, Mr. Speaker, to support our housing development, the national strategy for our housing, our housing sector. This technical cooperation, Mr. Speaker, executed by the IDB's Housing and Urban Development Division, was not just a formality. It aimed, Mr. Speaker, to bolster Guyana's Central Housing and Planning Authority in developing a robust national housing strategy in alignment with a broader sustainable development goal of creating inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable cities and human settlements. Mr. Speaker, the urgency of a strategic approach, Mr. Speaker, to housing cannot be overstated. Our communities deserve tangible action and leadership that moves beyond temporary photo ops. It is imperative, Mr. Speaker, that we hold our representatives, the people of Guyana, must hold that government responsible or accountable when it comes to housing development. Mr. Speaker, it is essential to recognize that Guyana's urbanization trends exhibit two critical characteristics that pose significant challenges for our housing and urban development policies. But you know what, Mr. Speaker? These urgent needs are seldomly acknowledged by the People's Progressive Party Civic. Because you know why, sir? Their intent is not to study what is happening in the housing sector. Their intention, Mr. Speaker, is if they find if they gotta convert, if they have to convert playgrounds and communities for housing for house lots. That is exactly what they're doing. They don't have no strategy, no plan, no coherent plan for the housing sector. So, Mr. Speaker, I know that my time, I have so much to say on this housing thing. But you know what? I will speak a bit off record. Mr. Speaker, we were told in this house in 2021 or 2022, 2022, the Honorable Colin Crowell came to this house and he said to this house in his budget speech of 2022 that the government, his ministry, the government started to look at the informal settlements. Those are persons who are squatting. And that, Mr. Speaker, a report was being done, the study was being done, and it will be presented to the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, that was reported to this House on January 26, 2022. We are now January 29th, 2025, Mr. Speaker. 3 years after, we are yet to see that report coming to this National Assembly where we all can have our input and devise a strategy how we can deal with informal settlements. Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party government currently struggles with significant shortcomings in governance, particularly in their reliance on comprehensive data analysis to inform decision making, while they proudly proclaim, Mr. Speaker, 50,000 house lots delivered, a manifesto promise. It's imperative that we critically examine the truth behind these assertions. Mr. Speaker, as a former minister who dedicated my service to the housing sector from April 22nd, 2019 to August 2nd, 2020, I am especially concerned about the content of paragraph 4.14 on page 58 of 111. Here, the ministry claimed to have developed a total of 85 new housing schemes. But Mr. Speaker, I challenge Mr. Kroll this afternoon to lay a list of all 85 new housing schemes that they developed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you hear? The coalition ain't do nothing. The coalition ain't do nothing between 2015 to 2020. But Mr. Speaker, the truth behind this, and
Honorable member, the truth is I've given you 2 minutes more. So let us get the extension of a further 5.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Chief Whip. Honorable member, you may continue.
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, available lands for housing in 2019. Mr. Speaker, this is what we left at the Ministry of Housing. We left LBI, we left Prospect, we left Cummins Lodge, we left Parcel 115 Providence, we left Block WW Plantation, Monrepo, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we also left Experiment. We left Skelder number 75, Mr. Speaker. We left Block Y number 75 Village, and the list can go on, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, because of time, just a couple days ago, I took a walk in LBI and several other housing schemes in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government, I know Colin Cole will come after me to boast about the number of houses built. And honorable member, thank you. But Mr. Speaker, this is what is currently happening in LBI. Unfinished work. Unfinished work, Mr. Speaker. Unfinished work, Mr. Speaker. Unfinished work, Mr. Speaker. So for you to come to the House to say to the people of Guyana that you have allocated some 50,000 house lots is far from the truth. Mr. Speaker, the evidence will show. The evidence will show, Mr. Speaker. All right, you can see just now. Oh, Lord, these things. Mr. Speaker, how can 50,000 house lot be given out when you have people 2010 waiting, never receive a call from the ministry, 2009 waiting, 2011 waiting? These are the evidence of people, Mr. Speaker, who are yet to receive a call from the Ministry of Housing to be given their house lot. And I know that the honorable member, the ministry never issued out 50,000 house lots. Mr. Speaker, if we left approximately, let us say, about 68,000 house lots. If you claim you gave out 41,000 house lots, and you know what they did, Mr. Speaker? When they came to power, you know what they did, Mr. Speaker? When they came to power, the lands that we give out in Prospect, in Experiment, in LBI, in Diamond, Mr. Speaker, what they did, they shift the numbers. So if you got lot 1 under the coalition government, they move you to lot 10 in the very area. That is what this People's Progressive Party Civic done. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, he will come here to say that we give out 7,000 house lots. But you know what? The very house lots that we give out, the 7,000, they're claiming ownership. They are claiming ownership. So, Mr. Speaker, no way has this People's Progressive Party Civic issued 50,000 house lots. So, Mr. Speaker, the coalition is on record as I prepare to wrap up. The coalition is on record saying, Mr. Speaker, that if the government, we know that our people are finding it difficult to access a loan from the banking institutions. I believe, Mr. Speaker, what a government should do is to apply as a pilot test the idea by the coalition at this moment. We're speaking about a rent to own. They got Venezuelans living in those chicken coop in Diamond, Mr. Speaker, and paying no rent. They're living free. Why is it that Guyanese cannot receive? Why is it that the government cannot give those people the houses and allow them to pay a monthly rental in a special account, Mr. Speaker? They don't like the people. They don't want Guyanese to own their own homes. They want Guyanese to rent apartments. They want Guyanese to squat. That is how they have Guyanese, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, quickly, let me touch a bit on water. The water situation in this country is atrocious. We approved over 22 billion in 2024. We heard about all the plants, the treatment plants being built, Mr. Speaker, and still, this is the state of water flowing through people's tap, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to suggest to this government that they need to do better, Mr. Speaker, in the housing sector. And as I prepare to conclude, Mr. Speaker, I so much I want to say on housing, but this 30 plus 5 ain't working. But Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I stand here firmly guided by the immutable principles of our Creator God Almighty. The scriptures remind us in Micah 6:8 to act justly and to embrace mercy. In Isaiah 1:17, we are called to learn justice and combat oppression. Leviticus 19:15 stipulates that we must not indulge in injustice or show favoritism, regardless of wealth or status. Proverbs 31:9 compels us, Mr. Speaker, to advocate for the vulnerable, ensuring they receive their rightful justice. Today, Mr. Speaker, I have done precisely that by fiercely advocating for the poor and powerless against this oppressive document known as Budget 2025, hastily assembled to secure the wealth of the people for those on the opposite side. This budget, Mr. Speaker, will not bring prosperity to our citizens in the oil-rich economy under the People's Progressive Party civic. We must take a stand for justice and the rightful use of our nation's resources. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I, Annette Natasha Ferguson Collins, unequivocally cannot support Budget 2025 as it stands. I urge Dr. Ashley Singh and his government to either withdraw or make significant amendments to this budget. It is essential, Mr. Speaker, that we prioritize the needs of the poor and fatherless rather than catering to the interests of the wealthy and prominent. Let us refocus our efforts, Mr. Speaker, to ensure a budget that truly serves our most vulnerable citizens. I pray God grant my colleagues on that side of the House uncommon eyes. Mr. Speaker, may God continuously bless us and bless our nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member, Ms. Ferguson. And now for the Honorable Member.